Tonight in the policy breakdown, I want to ask you a question out there. Now, I feel as though this show isn't more philosophical than other Fowler shows, but I think it's important that we have this conversation. Have we reached a tipping point in this country? Have the haves had too much and the have-nots not enough? Have we reached a racial tipping point in this country? I think we have. Let me explain to you why. So this week in North Carolina, hundreds of faith leaders were arrested for protesting conservative policies happening in the North Carolina House of the State Legislature. It's a project known as Moral Monday. See, for forever, the GOP and the Tea Party and the Christian right have long claimed to own the Bible and to own religious speak. They quote Bible scriptures, they pray to Jesus on the congressional floor, but yet their hearts are filled with bitterness, their hearts are filled with degradation, and their hearts are filled with hatred for those that have not. Well, the Moral Monday movement has massively expanded, and it's gained support of over 5 major Christian denominations. It originally started out as Christians protesting against the regressive tax policy proposal that's being proposed by the North Carolina State Legislature. But it has turned into Christians standing up for what is right and standing up for the least of these as God asked them to do. It stands up for they stood up against blocking the North Carolina Medicaid expansion. They stood up against discriminatory policies towards when the voter ID laws went into place. They stood up against cuts to preschool care. They stood up against hydrofracking, and most recently in 2000, they stood up to repeal a law in 2009, the Racial Justice Act, a law which allowed death row inmates to appeal their convictions if they are proven to be racially biased, if racial bias played into the decision. These are Christians doing the right thing. These are denominations standing up for what is right. They were arrested, yes they were, but they stood up for what is right. Because what we're seeing from the right, America, is a push to degrade and to humiliate and to shame those that have not. Now let's put this into play. So you have North Carolina ministers getting arrested for standing up for what's right. And you get people that are almost pretty much being rewarded for doing what is wrong. Stanford, Florida. A couple days ago, on Thursday, the jury was seated in the George Zimmerman case. In that case, they seated 6 women were chosen on Thursday. Of those 6 women, 5 of the 6 of them are white women in the George Zimmerman trial, right? They chosen from a pool of 500 individuals, and yet the most fairly and equally and most balanced jury that they can find were 6 women, 5 of them being Caucasian. The 4 alternates, there's 2 women and there are 2 men, and they're all white. America, ask yourself this, and I've said this before on this show, and I will say this once again. You are supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers. Yes. Trayvon Martin and his family are African American. You're telling me that they couldn't find an equal or racially balanced jury, maybe some Hispanics, right? But that's beyond the point. So you have what's happening in North Carolina where the state legislature continues to degrade against those that have not. And then you have what's happening in Stanford, Florida, where there is a possibility that George Zimmerman can walk after killing Trayvon Martin in cold blood. Yet, people believe we live in a post-racial society. I beg to differ. Yes, we do have an African-American president, but are the institutional legacies created by Republicans and the conservative right, have they gone too far that you can't overcome them with just having an African-American president? Let's look at the facts, America. Let's look at the facts. There's $1 trillion worth of student loan debt. African-Americans, disproportionately affected. People from single-family households, disproportionately affected. Latino families disproportionately affected by the student loan crisis. You have voter ID laws, and you have voting districts. You have congressional districts that are drawn to gerrymander to favor Caucasians, to favor a Republican-controlled Congress. Even though the president of this country is an African American, there's an African American family in the White House. We have to fight tooth and nail to get a watered-down immigration bill through the United States Congress. America, just because our president is black and just because there's more women in the House of Representatives and the Senate than ever before, it does not mean that we have not reached a tipping point in this country. I tell you today that we are close to a tipping point. We are close to the new civil rights movement. And here is what this new civil rights movement looks like. It looks like what we're seeing in North Carolina, where pastors and churches are standing up because the infringement upon rights and the degradation of the poor have gone too far. It is a civil rights movement where people in Florida are standing up because Trayvon Martin was killed in cold blood, yet still, George Zimmerman will get a trial where he's tried by 5 out of 6 of the jury members are Caucasian women. There's no diversity on the jury. I gotta tell you, we're in a new civil rights movement because we have something to fight against, and the fact the Supreme Court is considering why they should get what there's a possibility that they might get rid of affirmative action. America, the consequences and the impacts are great, right? The fight is great, but are we ready to have this fight? And I gotta tell you, and I've said this before, if nothing else happens in this country, if we do nothing else, one thing we must do is we must fight to have a country where you're truly judged by the content of your character and not the color of your skin. We celebrate so many things. We celebrate the 50th anniversary of RFK's death, right? We celebrated the passage of the civil rights movement. But do we still have fairness when a lesbian or a gay couple can't rent an apartment? Do we still have fairness when a black man is killed in cold blood? Hell, even the church has realized that there is no fairness in this system. We have got to demand more from our elected officials. Beyond demanding more, this is the fight of our lives. The fight of our lives to overturn some of the institutional policies created by the conservative right to keep us down. They have continued to keep us down. But this fight is a fight that we must fight. This is not Barack Obama's fight. And America, I love this president to death. I love what he's achieved. But this president has done nothing to move this fight forward. He has not. He has done nothing. We've heard nothing on mass incarceration from President Barack Obama. We've heard nothing about student loans from President Barack Obama. We've heard nothing about racial degradation from Barack Obama. We've heard nothing. Nothing. Nothing at all. We've heard nothing about the fact that there's so many gerrymandered congressional districts in this country that it is almost impossible for progressives to win back the House of Representatives. We've heard nothing from this president on these things. Now he's historical. Now he's done great things on health care. But this is not Obama's fight. This is our fight. The new civil rights movement includes everybody. Gay, straight, black, brown. Those who have versus those who have not. For those of us who have not, it is time for us to fight against the systems created to keep the haves having and us having not. We must be like those fearless individuals in North Carolina that get out there every Monday and stand up for what is right in the face of an institutionalized system that keeps them down. And an institutionalized system that always promotes what is wrong or promotes what is justice for just us. We must demand more. We must fight for more. We must do a better job at gaining more. But this means we've got to fight. Does it mean we might have to riot? Yeah. Hell yeah. We might have to start a riot. Hell yeah, but we must fight without ceasing for what is right. Stand up for righteousness or die for anything. Injustices must be solved, and the only way we can do it is by fighting, America. We've got to fight. And I got to tell you, I think this George Zimmerman case is going to be the turning point. I'll say it again. It'll be the turning point in what happens in this country. We'll be right back on the Fowler Show after this break.